If you are watching this, I bet you may identify as spiritual but not religious. Likely. And the rejection of organized, institutionalized religion is often righteous. But I wonder if in that rejection, you and I have thrown out some of the best medicine, and it is spiritual community, which is this month's series. The technology of sacred community, the spiritual technology of sacred community. And one of the pieces of moving in our path as spiritual but not religious, for many, many, many of us in that process have gained some agency through having a direct relationship with the divine, with God, with Allah, with the universe, with absolute intelligence, however you name the holy blessed one, this greater reality. But there's only so far you can go alone on that path. And to know the wholeness of God, to know deeply the divinity that you are and that the greater reality is, we need each other. And so this month, we are going to get into the sacred technology of spiritual community. And one of the ways we're going to do that is through sacred study. I'm offering the last class of the year beginning September 10th. I would love to have you there. It's an opportunity for you to sort of be the study of your own spiritual life. How can you design a spiritual life and spiritual practice that is unique and perfect for you? So it's an 8-week class starting September 10th. You can go to our website to get signed up. It is by love offering. There is no set cost for this course, and I would love to see you there so that you and I can get into deeper community together and get some of this technology. So for this series, I have a blessing for us. May we have the courage to reach when it feels easier to retreat, to reveal when it feels safer to hide, to co-create a sacred space where our wholeness is not just welcome, but needed. May we remember that the divine is not only found in quiet solitude, but in the holy clamor of being known and loved in community. I am Reverend Amani Malaika, and welcome to the Albuquerque Center for Spiritual Living Gathering. If this is your first time with us, I'm so happy you are here. I am going to talk a little bit today about sacred study in the context of community. And I want to share from the Quran, bless you. Community. That's community in action right here. Thank you, Jesse. From the Quran. The acquiring of knowledge without internalizing that wisdom and putting it into practice is like that of a donkey carrying books. I love that, right? So, as Clarissa was saying, we could read books about dance, but we're not going to get the impact and the medicine of ecstatic spiritual dance if we don't dance, right? We can read every sacred text there is to read on the planet, ancient and modern. But if we are only reading and we are not embodying what we are understanding, if we aren't taking the insight into action, we don't get to experience transformation. How many of us in the room, on video, would like to see change in their lives? How many would like to see change in the world, in your communities, in your neighborhoods, right? On these streets, right here. It is not going to happen because we read books. And I love reading books. I read a lot of books. There is not a sacred text I've come across that I can't find some beauty in. But if I am not willing to be the living, breathing embodiment of those truths, all of this is for naught. If what we are after is change and transformation, how do we get it? How does change happen? How does transformation happen in our lives? Right? How many of you have read something or had somebody say something that really was like, ooh, aha, I'm having an aha. Woo! They said a thing. Right? You might have even, if you're like me, they say a thing and you get mad for a minute. You're like, why did they say that? I've had moments where I've thrown a book across the room, right? It just said something so true, so undeniable. I was like, wow, they're talking about me. And I'm so sure that aha has just like, wow, I am changed by this information. Nuh-uh, because I went and did the same thing the next 5 minutes. Right? You've been changed by a piece of information. You leave here on a Sunday inspired out of your mind by something I've said. Right? And you have forgotten what it is by dinner. She said something really cool. I don't know what, you said something on Sunday. I hear this all the time from you guys. You said this thing. And I'm trying to, and it's a great feeling to hear something inspiring, to feel uplifted by a word, to have an aha moment. But that does not create change. And if change is what we're after, if transformation is what we're after, what then does create it? What actually helps us to move in a new way, to make a new choice, to take the insight that we're having and allow it to change what we're doing? Here's one thing that I know for sure. The thing that has helped me change the most, that has created the most transformation in my life, has been the times that I have felt the embodiment of truth in my body. And that created enough juice in me, gave me the strength and the courage to gather my own power, the energy that is in my being, to move it in a new way. And it came from this thing that awoke in me at these different times in my life. And I've shared with you guys some of the stories of change in my own life. And most recently, it came from having an interaction with a young woman who's living on the streets and strung out. And that interaction, she doesn't know me, she doesn't know my name. She probably doesn't even remember that we had an interaction. But the way God showed up in our interaction that day, I felt so deeply in my body that it required me to change. My body was like, you can't keep doing that. You can't pretend like you are somehow separate or different. It changed me, that interaction. That experience of community changed me. The things that give us a felt experience of something different, right? A felt experience of something different. And that might happen when you've read a thing or heard a thing. But then you've got to keep centered on it. What do we know? And here in all these different traditions and metaphysics, particularly in the science of mind, is our thought directs energy, right? What you put your attention on grows. What you contemplate, Buddha said, you are. So change doesn't happen because I read a thing and had a moment of insight. Change happens when I've had an experience that I am willing to let change me. And then I hold my attention on it. I contemplate it. I wrestle with it. And I want to share this idea of contemplation is really what study means in a spiritual path. Study is often we go to academics. We think it means that I have to open a book and read and learn, or I have to research. But really what study means is to look deeply, to contemplate. And one of the Greek words from one of the early translations from the Hebrew Bible, and I'm not going to remember the Greek word, but what it meant, the translation that we've taken to be contemplation or study, meant to gaze deeply. Gaze deeply. So I want to share with you from a practice in Judaism, which is their high holy days, so shout out to my Jewish friends. From the Babylonian Talmud, I have learned much from my teachers, more from my colleagues, and most from my students. And they have a practice that's called shavruta. And this practice is when two people study a piece of text, a lyric, a tree, right? Because if we study in the ways of looking deeply, gazing deeply at a thing, anything becomes sacred text, yes? But shavruta means that two or more people are going to get together, and one is going to recite the thing or share the thing. And the friend or your prayer partner, your study partner, you are going to give them the full experience of taking in that thing, gazing deeply at that thing, and then the space to say, this is what is moving in me as a result. This is what is rising and shimmering in me. That's one of the translations of shavruta, is we share what is shimmering. And then you take turns reciting, sharing. What is rising in you? How is this shifting or maybe moving or changing something in you? Because the way that contemplation often gets used in our traditions, modern traditions, alternative traditions, spiritual but not religious traditions, which, by the way, are now traditions, not a new idea, is that we think we mostly pull from Buddhism. We mostly pull from Buddhism, and we think contemplation is this thing of quiet and stillness. But when we really are interested in change and transformation, contemplation is about going deeply enough into the thing so that it can move you, change you. And then you discern. How do you know if this thing is moving you in a good way, if the change that it's asking you is for you? How do you know? You feel it. You know because you feel it in your body, you know. Right? You tell me when you read a thing in a book, even a silly meme on social media, and it hits, right? You're like, ooh, that hit me hard. How do you know it hit you hard? You feel it in your body. And that becomes part of the practice of discernment. Discerning this thing that is shifting in me and moving in me and asking for change in me. I'm going to now discern a way forward based on my contemplation, based on what my friend and I are sharing in this practice together. I'm going to take this to my people that I trust. I'm going to get their perspective on it. Because monkey mind is tricky, right? Be telling you stuff. A lot of untrue stuff. That's one of the beautiful technologies of community is when we do this work together. I can say, oh, that thing you just said about yourself is absolutely not the truth. Right? This thing that you're thinking about them, also not the truth. And you get to do that for me. And then when we hear the truth, when we feel the truth, We get to know what truth feels like in our own bodies. And then we become people of critical reasoning. Sounds like maybe we live in a place that could use some more skill and critical reasoning, yes, in this country. And that reasoning is a spiritual technology because you know what is good and right and true in you. Your divinity knows, but you and I have to practice what it feels like to know. To come into contact with this wisdom and this intelligence, the one mind that is in our mind. This is why we study. And this is why we study together. We build discernment. We become the living sacred text. And I want that for you. I want that for me. And I for sure want it for the collective. So that transformations we are longing for get to happen. Amen? Amen.